Wow, this month has gone by pretty well so far. Nothing too spooky. What is that? Oh, no, zombies, and I like blue cheese dressing on my salad. I'm a haunted mouse. Whew, I know what to do. Plushie, plushie. Help me, Frog Prince, and the cat is out of the box. Go! Hey everybody, I'm Tay from Cardboard West, and I play games from originally kind of ish Europe, and then they kind of are based on older games, but then they get brought over and someone in the West kind of adapts it in the same universe, but also based on an older game, and I share that all with you. Today, we will be covering a Kickstarter copy of Zombie Princess. This is a review prototype copy, so anything you might see will be based on that, and it is designed by Ted Alspach of Bezier Games. And this is just like Rebel Princess, except it is based on spades, whereas Rebel Princess was based on hearts. So we are going to show you how this plays, and then we will talk about what we think about this game. Alrighty, here we have a game of Zombie Princess. I've set this up for 4 players because the game it's based on, spades, is for 4 players. Of course, you can play this actually at different player counts, and you might see in the rules sometimes it might say individual or team. That's because at 3 and 5 players, you actually play individually. And as you can see here, they include initial setup and a team scoring card, which I'll go over later. But how initial setup works is you're going to deal out 2 princesses to each player, and all the princesses, they'll have a name like the pea or the swan maiden here, and then they're each going to have an ability, and so we'll cover those later. Then you're going to prepare the suited cards, so depending on the player count, you're actually going to remove certain cards. Since we're at 4 players here, we're going to remove the 11 through 15 of all the 4 different suits, and I guess we could show off the suits now. As you can see, there's animal suits, I guess, zombie animals, and then you have soldiers, princes, and finally villagers. Then you're going to have a dealer. They're going to start dealing. The player to the left is their start player, so let's say it's this player. And now players are going to be on teams at 4 players. So this player and this player are going to be on a team against the other player. Players are also, before they get cards, going to pick their princess. So maybe this player is the pea princess. Then we have Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella. That's good. And finally, we have just right, Goldilocks. Then you're going to place all of the skulls and the coins in the center of the table. And finally, you're going to have round cards. You're actually going to get 3 green and then 1 black backed card. The black back just means it's the final round, and it has kind of swingier or more bombastic things that happen at the end. So you're going to line them up. And in our first game, we're actually just going to go with A, B, C, D because that's what they recommend in the game. So we're going to flip it over, and we have Opening Night of the Living Dead. So usually they'll have a little bit of text that'll have something different in the round that you're playing. But for this first one, it's just going to be super simple. And now we're going to explain what that 4 is. That's the number of cards that you're going to exchange with your partner. So in an individual game, I believe you only pass to the right or left, depending on that arrow. But in a team game, like in this one, you're going to pass to your partner. And it is simultaneous. So Pea Princess is going to pick 4 cards to pass simultaneously to Goldilocks, who's also going to pass 4 to the Pea Princess. And again, that number will change. Like that is just the A. But on B, as you can see, it's 1. On C, it's 2, and they are different numbers. After the exchange, now starting with the start player, which was Sleeping Beauty, they are looking at their cards, and they're going to try to guess how many tricks they think they're going to win. So the prince suit is trump, but it can't be led into the trick unless it has been broken. So looking at their hand here, they think, oh, I can lead with this, probably win a trick, lead with this, probably win a trick. Maybe they think 3. So they're going to take 3 of those tokens there. Coming to the Pea Princess, maybe they take 2, and Cinderella decides to take 1, and then finally Goldilocks decides to take 2. The interesting thing is, just like in spades, when you bid, you're actually bidding for your team. So Sleeping Beauty, even though they said they think they're going to take 3 tricks, and Cinderella thinks they're going to take 1, as a team, they just need to take 4. So Sleeping Beauty, maybe they take 2 and they can't take another one. Cinderella can help them out by taking 2 tricks, and they can hit their team bid of 4. So it's individual kind of bidding, but then you're actually bidding for essentially what your team is going to take. You can, in the game, do a null bid, just like in Spade. That's saying you're not going to take any tricks. So maybe Cinderella's like, actually, I'll take none. If you take a 0 bid and are successful, you're actually going to get a bonus at the end of the round, which I'll explain during scoring. And how a null bid works is it's not that both teams have to not take any tricks anymore, obviously, because Sleeping Beauty took 3 tricks, but it's that this individual player can't take a trick to successfully hit a null bid. So now in this case, Sleeping Beauty does need to take all 3 of their tricks themselves, and Cinderella doesn't want to take any trick for that null bid to work. Now, done with the bidding, we are going to get into trick play. So again, like I said, you can't actually lead with the trump suit, the princes, into a trick unless that's the only card you have. Also, we have the Frog Prince. They're back from Rebel Princess. They have a power, which we'll explain a little later. For now, let's just say Sleeping Beauty starts off with a 10. So it is must follow. So if you do have that suit, you must play it. Coming to Cinderella here, they are going to play that 8, and then Goldilocks is going to play the 5. So it's highest of the lead suit. So Sleeping Beauty is going to win this. If Goldilocks didn't have any of that suit, the animal suit, they could, if they wanted to, trump in, and then they would have won because it's the highest trump suit. And once it's broken, just like hearts or spades, then it can be led. So if this actually was the trick and Goldilocks did trump in, they would collect the trick, and then they could, if they want to, lead with the princes since it now has been broken. Now continuing the trick, coming to the P Princess here, they can add 5 to the value of any card when played. So when they're playing the 6 here, maybe they want to do that. That is now an 11. When a player uses their princess power, they're just going to flip their card. So now coming to Cinderella here, even though they had a 10, they are actually happy because they null bid, but they would lose because that is an 11. So then the P Princess would take the trick. Jumping ahead here, the last thing to explain is the Frog Prince. As you can see, it says on the text on the card, the winner of this trick decides if it counts as a 1 trick or not. So let's say Sleeping Beauty took that trick because they had the highest of the lead suit. They would take the trick, and usually when you win a trick, you would flip it and have it face down next to you, kind of like a 1 trick. But when the frog is in the trick, you are going to keep it face up on top because players should know whether that counts as a trick or not. So jumping ahead to the very end of the scoring, Sleeping Beauty wanted to take 3 tricks. If it looked like this, they would at the end decide that that does count as a trick because they do want 3 tricks. But if they actually got 4, then they could go, nope, this actually doesn't count as a trick, and they would just discard it so that they perfectly hit their bid of 3. Speaking of, let's go to scoring, and they give you this handy dandy scoring card with individual scoring and team scoring. So we're using the team scoring here. You can just go down this list. So starting with Get Princesses, what this means is that each card, I didn't show it off, but if you didn't use your card, so we actually used the P Princesses card, so it would be flipped. But if you didn't flip it, and it has a skull on the top right, you would get a skull for not using it. So it's kind of like a reward for not using your power. Also, I should say some powers are only at teams. That's what that symbol is. But over here on Cinderella, they don't have that symbol. So it didn't matter at all. They wouldn't get a skull for not using it, but Sleeping Beauty would. Looks like Goldilocks also didn't have a star. And even though the pea shooter did, this one was used. So after this step, only the Sleeping Beauty would get 1 skull. Next up, you are going to get 5 for a successful null bid. Good job, Cinderella. You would get 5 for your team because they took no tricks and they bid null. Next up is an optional part of the scoring is you can pay 4 skulls per missing trick. So let's say, as you can see here, Sleeping Beauty, they got 3, they bid 3, that was perfect. But let's say they actually only got 2, and the Frog Prince, I guess, is nowhere to be found from the previous example. But as you can see here, they only got 2, they really needed 3. They could take some of the skulls that they just won, because they have 6 total as a team. They could spend them, so they could spend 4 to count as an additional trick so that they can hit their bid. So now they're down to 2 skulls, but they did that so that they hit their bid, which will make sense later. Next up is you check the round card and see if you need to pay or receive any skulls. This round card just was blank, right? So nothing there. And then now you're going to pay 2 for each trick over your team bid. So they have hit 3, but let's say the other team, they actually took 5 tricks, even though they bid the 4 tricks that they thought they were going to take, they would actually pay skulls. They don't have any skulls. So if you don't have any skulls, you just go down to 0. So if they had 1, they would lose that 1. But let's say they did have, 5 or something, they would pay 2 because they got 5 tricks, and they would get 3 back. And let's say there were 2 tricks over, they would actually pay 4. If there were 3 tricks over, they would play, all of them. That makes sense, hopefully. And then finally, the big scoring, now that we're done with all the skull stuff, is you get 1 point per coin if you make or exceed your bid. So back to this example here. Let's say this team actually bid a bajillion and they didn't even make their bid. Then they would get 0 points. Coming over to Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella team, they bid 3, they got 3, they did have to pay for it, but they did get 3, they would get 3 points. So then you would come over to the handy dandy kind of tracker of scores in the round. It's by team, so you would write the team 1, the team 2, and you would write down 0 for this team who bid too high and they didn't get to their total, and so they messed up. And then you would write down 3 for the Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella team. So that is 1 round in the bag. As you can see here, you're going to be playing 4 total rounds. At the end of round 3, you're actually going to be doing a subtotal and finding out with the number of skulls who is going to be the leader or the leading team going into the 4th round, because that's very important for 4th round cards, because they all give a catch up to the team that is losing. So let's now look at a couple examples of the round cards. So that was round A. So looking at B here, you only pass 1 card, but as you can see here, you're going to gain a skull for each captured card and gain 2, for each captured 1 card and gain 2 for each captured 2 card. So coming over here, so looking at Sleeping Beauty's first trick here, as you can see, they did capture a 1. So when they did that, they would have actually gotten another skull for winning that. And again, skulls are great because not only do they give you the affordance to pay them to make your missed bid, but also in the end of the game, you're actually going to get its number of skulls rounded down, or divided by 2 and rounded down, as points. So they're also potential points. So they're like a currency, a point. They're very useful. Now coming to C here, as you can see, is that it says before the first trick, you're also going to play a face down card. That's going to be into the last trick. So this is now getting into a little bit of the Rebel Princess-ish wild vibes where, again, you're doing like a blind final trick. So that's pretty fancy. And then now coming to our first example of a final card, which is supposed to, be kind of wackier, swingier, helping the team that's losing kind of catch up. As you can see here, first off, you're passing 5 cards, which is wild, half your hand. That's absolutely nutty. And then, as you can see here, you're going to gain 2 tricks for each captured trick, except for the team in the lead. So this is just going to give 2 skulls, which is essentially a point, to every trick captured if you are losing. So pretty wild catch up. Another fun example here of a final card is after the pass, each team or player that's not in the lead may view all the cards to the player to their right. Oh, wow. Pretty wild. So that is how to play Zombie Princess. And again, it's just most points at the end wins. Covering some of the princesses here that we didn't talk about. As you can see, you have Goldilocks here, where the bid is just right. It's always active. And so that's kind of probably why there's no skull there. But you receive an additional 3 skulls if you match your bid exactly. And then looking at Cinderella, Smashing Pumpkins, good band. It's always active. You do not have to play a prince if one was led. So you can hold back your princes for maybe later. So a little bit stronger of a hand. Some other quick examples. Swan Maiden just gives you a skull for every 2 tricks you win. Red Riding Hood is at the start of your turn, you may trade 1 card in your hand for a card that is not a prince in a previously won trick. Pretty wild. And then finally, Scheherazade is the pen is mightier than the sword. You can change your bid before the 4th trick. So if things aren't looking good for you, or start taking too much or too little, you can change your bid. And finally, covering just some more interesting round cards. This one, woof, another big 5 pass, is 1 tricks that have a villager card in them don't count towards your bid. Woo! Pretty wild. After each trick, every player exchanges a card face down with your partner. You gain 3 for every captured 3, so it's kind of like the 1s and 2s, but even wilder. You gain skulls equal to your lowest card value that you've won. What? Absolutely wild. These are some pretty nutty cards, and again, they go all the way to Z, just like Spinal Tap. So that is just a taste of Zombie Princess. And now, back to you, Tay. And here we have Haunted Mouse. Look how cute it is. We have the cheeses set up for 4 players here. Every player is going to get an adorable little player board. Bree, look how cute Bree is. And there's a 2 through 4 player side and then also a 5 player side. So you're going to flip it to the right side. Then you're going to shuffle the deck. You're going to deal 8 cards each player. Then you're going to flip one face up. This is a common public bait. We'll explain how that works in a little bit. And then you're going to put the whole deck right here for players to use. Next, players are going to simultaneously put face down any card they want as a bait card, kind of flipped 90 degrees here. And this is going to be cards that players are going to offer other players to take and help them shed out. So players are all going to do that simultaneously. And then after they add 1, players may optionally, if they are tied for the fewest number of cheese wheels, add a second bait card. So at the very start of the game, everyone has 0 cheese wheels. So everyone is tied at last. So everyone could, if they want to, add another card. So maybe these 2 do, and maybe those 2 over there don't. And as you can see, these little cheese pieces, which are the points, fill into the cheese wheel nicely. Once everybody's picked a card, you'll reveal. And I should say, as players are looking at their hand and choosing what card to put in front of them as bait, you may not rearrange your hand. Don't move it! This is just like Scout or games of that ilk where you cannot move your hand, so very important. Now that we're all set up, you're going to play 2 to 5 rounds, but the goal really is the first player to 7 cheese wedges. That player wins. We're going to start with Colby over here, and how it works is on your turn, you can do one of 3 actions. You can play a meld, you can draw a card, or you can play a bomb, or like a trap is what they call it. So again, you cannot rearrange your hand. So this player here, they could play this 3 to now make this 7-6 closer in their hand, which is good for runs. And they're also suited, which is good for bombs. So maybe that's what they're going to do. But also, as you can see here, they could just lead a run to run, or maybe move this 2 and have a pair of 1s there. Let's say they decide to play this 3. So they're going to play it out into the center here. And now coming to Rockford, again, they can either draw a card, they can play a stronger meld, or they could play a trap. Looking at their hand here, they don't really have a means of playing a trap, and maybe they don't want to draw a card, they do want to actually play. And so when you play, they can't play this 3-card run, because you can only play a stronger meld if it's exactly 1 card more. So if they want to play a run, it has to only be a run of 2. So they're going to play a run right there of 8 and 7. And when you discard a card in the game, like you've been beaten, like Colby over here just got beaten, you're just going to put it in a designated discard area. So maybe that's just off the screen for this video. Coming to Bree now. Now they actually do have a bomb, because in this game, the bait cards that are in front of players are able to be played by anyone, except if you're leading to the trick, you can only play your own bait cards. You can't take anyone else's bait cards. Also, there is the public bait card where, again, if you're not leading, you can also take from there. So looking at Colby's hand here, they can take this 5 and put it here. And since this is an order run, they can actually play a trap on their turn. And what's interesting is, so they're going to take this, play the trap. If the cards were in this order, that wouldn't count, because it has to be like reading as a run. And notice the 4 is in the wrong place. So this is actually now a trap. Boop. And a trap card can be played no matter what is played before. So notice how I previously said that since they were playing a 2-card run and they couldn't play a 3-card run because the previous was a single, you always have to play exactly 1 more stronger if you're going to change the meld. This is 4 cards, which is 2 more than 2 cards, so that might be seeming weird, but since it's a trap, you can play it whenever you want to. And looking at traps here, it's a suited run of 4 or 4 of the same number but of different suits. So this kind of essentially bombs, if that makes sense, and players are going to discard this, and you actually discard the trap itself, and then the player who played it will then play and lead again. So coming to this player, they could play like these 2 2s or the 4 or the 8, and maybe they just do the single 4. So then coming to Jacques over here. Now Jacques, again, they could play like this 5 because it's stronger than that single, or they could play any of these like 9, 7, or 8, or other 5, but they are going to draw because they notice, oh, this 4 is really good. Maybe they want to start building toward a suited run. So they're going to take this 4 and put it into their hand. Whenever someone uses the public bait, you're going to refresh it right away. So now it comes to Colby. Maybe Colby just plays a run of 2. You're going to discard that 4 that was in front of that player. coming over. So now it's 3 cards, or since those 2 cards are played, so now Roquefort can play their run of 3. I'm going to discard those. Maybe Jacques wants to draw a card. They're going to just draw that 6, and they can put it anywhere, which is super nice. Doesn't quite matter for the 6, but they'll put it right there. Coming to this player here, let's just show another example. Maybe over the course of the game, someone used this 4 when it came to them, and they decided to pick up and draw and put this anywhere. Maybe they put it here. You can, if you have no cards in front of you as bait after you do a draw, add a card in front of you as bait. So maybe they want to add this 1 to help people take from them and help them shed. Let's say Colby also just decided to draw. So if everyone draws in a row, and if it comes to your turn and you have cards in front of you, you're just going to discard them, and then you're going to lead again as if it was a lead. So this player, they're just going to actually play a 1, 2, 3. Using the 2 bait cards in front of them and their 1 card in their hand, and that actually lets them go out. In a 4-player game, the first player to go out is going to get 3 little cheese wedges, and they're just going to put them into their little circle here, and now they are 3/7 of the way to scoring and winning. So play like this is going to continue, and the next person out, let's say Bree goes out, they're going to get 2 wedges, the last person is going to get 1 wedge, and then you wouldn't finish out the hand for that last player. So that was a round of the game, and again, you're just going to play until someone gets 7 cheese wedges, and then that player would win immediately. And that's how to play Haunted Mouse. Ooh. So, Rebel Princess. First, we can talk about the game, box, and production itself. Look at this. You open it up, and you perfectly see, I love you for your brains. Wonderful continuation of the theme of Rebel Princess, or the universe, or kind of the idea around how Rebel Princess was evading all the princes, and now they have become zombies and now are attacking the prince in Zombie Princess. Other things to point out that we really enjoy. Not sure what the final makeup and look of these will be, but as you can see right here, or maybe during the playthrough, they have spades in the eyes, and they're wonderful kind of homage to the original game Spades, but also just really nice components. And speaking of nice components, wow, multiple people during the plays I played of this gushed about these coins. These coins are so wonderful, super hefty, and also, again, if you had seen it, has a princess on one side and a castle on the other. Feels great to bid with them, play around with them. So awesome. And also talk about the wonderful things that they did is similar art style and same, I think they got the same artist of Rebel Princess. So it does obviously feel still in that kind of Rebel Princess universe, and all of the new additions and changes to the princesses and the card art and everything looks so great. Knock knock. Who's there? Interrupting Haunted Mouse. Interrupting Haunted Mouse. Boo! Hey, here we are going to talk about Haunted Mouse really quick. Oh, it's so cute, so cute. The Sai Bappu artwork. Oh, we love Sai. Everything Sai does is just so wonderful. And look, you can even see in the O is a tiny little mouse, and all of the art on the cards, all the predators, even an owl. Ooh, we love owls, especially drawn by Sai. But and then you got, you know, snakes, you got little cats that are still cute, even though they are menacing. So wonderful, wonderful artwork. And the production on all the little different, like Jacques and Brie, all the different Colby, all the different mice with the inner dual layered board, which was so clever. In addition, the mouse pieces are so nice. We already covered this game when it was called Spring Cleaning by Jonathan Cox back in, well, this is also still by Jonathan Cox, back when it was released by Little Dog, and there was little dogs on the cover. And this one now, we just love Sai Bappu, so we love the production and the artwork, but the gameplay changes. So I think the two main ones are the fact that when someone sheds out, it doesn't just end the round immediately and you get points that way. That was in Spring Cleaning. Now you actually keep going until you are trying to shut out, and you get more and more, or you get fewer and fewer cheese pieces to try to hit 7. I think it works great. I kind of just like that simple keep going until everyone's out. I actually don't mind either way. I like the way Spring Cleaning did it as well, because then it wasn't like a long round. It was actually like a pretty short round, but also it kind of feels nice when you're second or third and you do get something and you go out. I think I kind of prefer either way. That's a weird way to say that. I don't mind either way. I prefer either way. That doesn't make sense. And then to the other big thing is the bombs. So I don't mind it. I think it's cool to give players something to work toward. Also, it's a nice way to break up that flow of you can only go one card more, because that is a noticeable restriction in spring cleaning. And I know some players didn't like that. And I think what's cool about the bombs is like when you have a bomb, it's pretty much you can always play it whenever. Or they're called traps in this game because they are traps for, I think, the haunted mouse. Or no, they're traps for other haunted mice, I think is the theme. The theme's pretty wacky. But so, yeah, so I do like how the traps make it feel a little bit more like a common shedding game with those bombs, with that flow and kind of pace that you can work towards something. So to run all different colored sets and have like something that is pretty guaranteed to always be played on your turn. Or when you're looking out and you really need that one last card that is in front of someone that completes your bomb, and it gets taken, as it sometimes does in this game, that feels all the more I wish I could have used it sooner or something. Because in climbing shedding, sometimes players, when they do have a bomb, they will hold on to it for the opportune time. But sometimes in this game, if you are relying on a card in front of someone as your bomb, it's a little bit fleeting. So you have to pay attention to the timing of it all. I still think I like... Actually, I don't know. I prefer both. Higher player counts, you have more on offer, which is fun, but then it does take longer to get to you. So then there's more players possibly taking the cards that are on offer. So I don't know if I like it at higher or lower player counts. I still think it has an interesting, nice, different feel and balance for all of them. So yeah, definitely check out spring cleaning video if you want more final thoughts on what we think about Haunted Mouse. But for now, we're gonna go book back to Tay talking about Zombie Princess. All right, bye, boo, bye, bye, boo, bye, boo, bye, bye, bye. To the gameplay. This is Spades with powers. So the fun part of Spades, where you have a teammate and you're bidding and you're bouncing off your teammate, you're passing cards to your teammate, you can bid and your teammate can bid, but you can both try to capture those tricks to help each other out. Maybe if one of you underbid or overbid or whatever that may be, you try to handle that in the gameplay together. It still has that really strong team feel. Also, this does play 3 and 5, and those have individual aspects to them. I think I prefer the 4-player just because that's what Spades is, and I have such a strong connection to Spades. I love playing Spades so much that I think I do prefer that, but that might just be a bias of my background of Spades, whereas maybe if you came into Zombie Princess and you had never played Spades, you might enjoy more like the 3 and 5. I don't know, I think I had a little bit of that bias. It's kind of like how I've known some players who hadn't played Hearts when they played Rebel Princess, and I think playing that game didn't feel kind of zany or wacky to them because they hadn't played the standard Hearts, so they never knew kind of how it felt. Similar to here is this does feel pretty, wacky and zany compared to Spades, but I had played with players who hadn't played Spades. They picked it up, no problem, and it didn't feel, too wacky to them because they, didn't have that original kind of basis. But back to what makes Zombie Princess so interesting. I think maybe my favorite mechanism is I think they're called skulls. I'm trying to remember exactly what they're called. But these right here are so interesting. Part of, if you've played Spades, one of the hooks of Spades, besides, the fun bidding system and the partnerships and such, is that idea of bags. So in Spades, bags are if you take tricks over your bid, you get a bag for every trick that you go over your bid, and having a certain amount of bags makes you lose points. And it's kind of this arc, this progression that goes from hand to hand. So like the entire game has an arc rather than just like a hand, kind of like that. But in this game, I was interested in how they would do bags, and they've done it in a really interesting mix of mechanisms where these skulls, right, they are both points at the end, a tool to spend to reach your bid, and kind of a penalty. Because if you go over your bid, you lose 2 of them, which is kind of, if you think about it, kind of like bags. And so it's clever that all 3 of them mix in an interesting way. So you care about them! And they are everywhere. They are on the princesses that you use. If you don't use them, the princesses cards that you don't use. If you don't use some of the princesses, you get bonuses from the round card usually. If you maybe capture a 1 or a 2, those are the interesting examples, or like capture a 3 in certain rounds. Or, and what if I'm just losing at the end? Well, this game has, just like Rebel Princess, hourglass rounds in the very end that help you come back. One of the standard ones that you play with in the recommended first setup of the game is that if you are losing, essentially every trick that you win as a team will get you, boink, 1 point, because it gives you 2 of these little bad Larrys. And that is classic, I think, Rebel Princess vibes, is that you can always come back. I like this system a little bit better. You always play 4 rounds. In Rebel Princess, you played 5, which sometimes in a game that wacky kind of overstayed its welcome. I felt like the 4 rounds felt great. There was a nice tension to it. I like that the losing team gets to choose who bids first because it is so important. I will say some issues I had were some of the powers are just incredibly strong relating to each other. So, for example, I played with Dorothy, who lets you just eat a trick and get 3 skulls out of it, which is amazing because 3 skulls are great, but also it gives you flexibility, just like the frog, right? To have a +1 or -1 kind of maneuverability in the trick. Like I was playing and my partner was Dorothy and they null bid and they were fine because, if they did take a trick, they got kind of 3 skulls out of it. So it's like they took a null bid and a 1, which is just so powerful. And then I played once where my power was in the middle of a hand. I could pass 1 to 3 cards to my partner, and then they could pass a few back. But I found in this game where it's 1 to 10, and you have sometimes an incredible amount of passing. And some of those round markers, I think the highest it can go is 5, but that's half your hand, right? And so I never found that to be useful kind of at all because you just do so much passing at the start. And also you're bidding and passing, like you have so much flexibility that princess just wasn't very useful. Whereas like the one princess that gives you points and flexibility on taking a trick, that's huge. Anyway, so I think there's some balance in the powers that stood out to me as maybe too strong or too light. Also, I felt like everyone starts with 1 skull. I felt like I would want a little more than that. In the very first round, we had some players miss their bid, but you don't have enough skulls maybe in the first round, depending on what round you play, to be able to spend 1 to hit your bid, and it kind of set them on a little bit of a bad back foot right on the start. So I think there's some tweaks that I would want to help blossom how fun this game is, because I do think this game has a ton of fun elements to it. And so clever. Like I think I didn't even talk about the Frog Prince, the 6, is such a clever touch to give some fun complexity in the trick play, but not too wild. Like it is also fun thematically that the Frog Prince has now changed up and has become helping the princesses in a nice, fun way. We love you, Frog Prince! One final note is the rulebook is written to work for both 3 and 5 individual players and the 4 and 6 team, and it was a little confusing because they try to write it working for all of it, and also some of the symbols mean both a group of skulls and a specific skull, and I think it's one of those rulebooks that instead of says, hey, here's how to play 3 and 5 at the end of the rulebook, it tries to do all of it all at once. I think it's a tough problem to solve, and I think, honestly, the way they did it is probably the best way. They probably thought about it a lot, but it does inherently make for a really tough read, and it led to some confusion, also on like player powers and like aspects. I almost wish, just because it's based on spades, and I think personally I had the most fun of it with it at 4. Again, bias. I almost wish it was just like written for 4 players, and then hey, later on, here's how to play individually. But that's, again, a little bit of a me thing. So that's the little zombie princess that could. And as you can see, whoop, there goes the Frog Prince. They are excited to jump over to that Kickstarter link. And again, this is a Kickstarter preview. So everything I've said, you take that in mind. And this one, I do want to say, as a final cap, has done a wonderful, wonderful job of meeting my and exceeding my expectations on what spades with the Rebel Princess treatment would be like. You got powers, you got wackiness, you got so many rounds, you got so many different princesses, and the card play in and of itself with the bidding and the interaction with the fun way they did these skulls and bags are such a good, clever use of a whole nice system. So definitely check out the Kickstarter page. I thought they did such a great job. And that is Zombie Princess! Thanks so much. I am Tay from Cardboard West, and you have been sentenced to going to that Kickstarter. I forgot how Jay ends the video. How do they do that?
One of my favorite card games of 2024, and I'm going to be incredibly surprised if it leaves my top 10. I definitely think it's going to be one of the best card games I've played this year. And it's, I mean, you can still pick what you want if you want. Thanks everyone for watching. If you like cardboard games and you like what you see here, please consider helping support our channel by supporting our Patreon, that link down below, and liking and subscribing. Also helps. Once again, my name's Jay. I play board games from Asia and share what I find with all of you. I'm going to put some links to some videos over here that I think you'll enjoy. See you there.